Francis Seeley from Enfield Climate Action Forum, and we've got Jasmine White with us today. And Jasmine is trying to set up a peer learning group to look at public space in Enfield and how important that is to communities, particularly in the areas of community power, in ecological concerns and food security. And we know that public spaces is a premium. In fact, it's been decreased and people really need it. So I'm really pleased Jasmine is here today to talk about it. So welcome, Jasmine. And can I first ask you if you could tell us a little bit about yourself and why you are interested in public space?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me today, Francis. I'm a creative producer. I've been working in the art sector for the last 10 years, running community arts projects all around London and different parts of the UK. And they've often been using arts and creativity as a way to explore how our local areas shape who we are, how we relate to our neighbours, and to sort of how we live our lives. It's a topic I'm really interested in terms of public space. And I grew up in Enfield, so it's really nice to be back working in a local area that means a lot to me and has shaped a lot of who I am today. I guess I'm really interested in public space and the importance of it because I guess it underpins so many of the different things that and challenges that we're all going through. And I think over the last 10 years with the work that I've been doing, that I've been really seeing that as that comes through, access to public space is impacting the housing crisis, our impact to kind of safe and secure homes. It impacts our ability to go to community spaces and have places that we can hang out in that doesn't require us to buy a really expensive coffee. It's impacting the climate crisis. It impacts structural racism. You know, that's a huge part of public land and who has access to it. So yeah, I think it's a conversation I'm really interested in, and I think it underpins a lot of what each of us are going through. So I'm interested in kind of having more conversations about it. And I would say the last thing is I'm really new to this topic too. And that's kind of why I want to have this peer learning project. Is I think sometimes words like land rights and land justice can feel quite academic, and there's a lot of complexity behind them, which probably there is, but also ultimately it's like something that impacts us all. And it's great to kind of just be able to us all to have conversations about it. So this is me kind of talking about it from a learner perspective.
Yeah, but one of the problems we have today, isn't it, is that the public space is on the decline. You know, the common space that we used to have lots of at one time is being reduced because of privatization. And that's a real issue, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as you say, the concept of being able to own land is relatively new. Pre the 18th century, land was a commons, and it was something that we could kind of all use to our own benefit in terms of shelter and eating and socializing, and we kind of in return would look after it. And since the 18th century, it's just become increasingly privatized to the point where now only 8% of land in England is publicly accessible. So there's huge amounts of land that is kind of used for private use and commercial use. And we can absolutely see that in the housing crisis and the cost of living crisis today.
And you're trying to develop, aren't you, or find ways of developing local governance models that allow people to share environmental and economic benefits. I mean, what do you have in mind when you talk about local governance models?
I guess I'm kind of curious about what it would just look like to reimagine the current relationship we have with land. You know, at the moment, it's sort of very much seen, or the normalization of it is that it's something that we can own and profit from and extract from. And as we were talking about with the common land, there was a much more reciprocal relationship there, where it was something that you could use to support your own life and your family's life to kind of live fulfilling day-to-day lives. But in return, you kind of had there was just this embedded responsibility you had to kind of looking after the land, making sure it was growing well and it was being used in a sustainable way. And so I'm just curious at what it would look like to maybe recreate some of those structures of the past or reimagine ones that are more fit for the future, and what it would mean if the people who actually live on the particular lands on a day-to-day basis and know it well are the ones that have the power and the decision-making power to actually choose how that land is used and for what benefit. So really open to what it could look like, but I think it's kind of just seeing how we might reimagine what is currently in the status quo.
I mean, that obviously interests us in NCAF because, climate change has to be about climate justice. And sometimes, well, always with climate change, it's the most vulnerable communities that suffer the most. And they're the ones who need that public space. They need green space. They need trees in cities. They need shelters to go to when there's too much heat. They need places to go where they can discuss and debate and talk over the problems that they're facing us. So the whole issue of land justice very much fits in, doesn't it, with climate justice itself?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say so. I think it's that phrase which I know you say as well, Francis, of you can't have climate justice without social justice, and it is so interwoven in the way I see it as well. And I think land justice really recognizes that the history and the embeddedness of how distributions of wealth and assets is really uneven and has loads of disparity in it. And I think that we can see the harsh impacts of that today. Who is able to afford to buy big houses and plots of land and have homes that can protect us from extreme weather versus those that can't. And the loss of community spaces and being able to grow food is a massive impact if the extreme weathers of impacts of climate change happen, and not being able to just have those resources that we need to be able to live, and we lose that. So yeah, I think it's absolutely connected.
And you're very enthusiastic, clearly, about doing something about it. And I said in my introduction that you are wanting to set up a peer learning and development group. Do you want to tell us what that means? What is that about?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, the project's going to be called Landlines, and it's going to be a peer learning project that will happen at Dugdale Arts Centre, specifically for 18 to 35-year-olds in January and February. And what will happen is we'll have 5 workshops that will happen weekly, and will be a small group of us where invited practitioners, historians, activists, growers, artists will come and help us learn more about the history of land ownership and how that has impacted lives in England and in Enfield. And then we'll hear from people that are exploring alternative models for relating to land. And everyone who participates in the project will receive a £350 fee at the end of the project to make a creative response to what they've learned. And we're going to collate all of those creative responses into a zine that will be kind of this resource that we can share in Enfield for more people who are interested in learning about this local history and different ways of relating to land and organising for building a kind of a more sustainable and fairer Enfield. So it's really I think it's going to be really exciting. I'm really excited for it. Applications are actually now open, so I'm going to send Francis the link to that. And if you're not in the age group, we will at the end of March have like a celebration and sharing event where we'll be kind of having a more broader conversation about the topics that Francis and I have just been discussing. So we'd love for you to come along to that, and we'll be promoting about that in the new year as well.
I was going to ask you about my age group and whether we could be involved in it or not. I thought you were shutting us out for a moment, but we're going to
Not
be
at
able
all.
to celebrate, which is good. What's your schedule for this? When do you hope to start it?
So the applications are now open, and they will close at the beginning of December. And then if you're selected to be a part of the program, the workshops will start mid-January and run until mid-Feb. And then the sort of wider event will happen at the end of March.
So when you're talking about volunteers, this is what you mean, participants in the workshops, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I mean, are you hoping to get a fairly wide spread of people from different areas, or are you concentrating on a particular area?
Really, really keen to get people from across all different parts of the borough of Enfield. I think, the borough has so many different experiences in terms of our relationship to land. And so I think everyone I've been speaking to in the run up to this project has said that they'd really love for it to be open to all different parts of the borough so we can kind of hear from each other's experiences and start to join up connections.
Well, if you can send me information about that, I'll get that out as quickly as I can. In fact, I'll get it out not in the newsletter I'm sending out today, but in the one I send out probably in about 5 or 6 days' time. And it would
Brilliant.
try and get people interested in it. But I'm really keen in listening to your enthusiasm, which is obviously very great. And I was just wondering, is the basis of your belief that what is possible in art becomes thinking in life? In other words, art and community action can affect us all and change what we do and how we behave.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's just a really useful tool in helping create some space for us to sit and reflect about what we think and what we believe and how we want to build and mobilize and create connections. I think that it's a topic where it's not necessarily got black and white answers, and the use of land can feel really contested at times. There's lots of different priorities, and I think that art and creativity is a great way for us to kind of hear lots of information, sort through it, and kind of reflect on what makes sense for us and what we believe in, and also I guess create that space to build our own thoughts and beliefs more generally in terms of wanting to create an area, a local area that feels really democratic. Art is a big part of being able for us to kind of get involved with other people and start to kind of build and advocate for things that we believe in.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks for doing that, Jasmine, because I think that project is really interesting. And those type of deliberative sessions, I think, is really, really important. And it's a new form of citizen democracy, which is also equally important. So thank you for doing this, and we'll get this around to people so they know what you're doing. And hopefully it will become very successful. So thank you, Jasmine.